This question is titled, what does this have to do with my work? What is the command line really good for? When do I really write a shell script? Unfortunately, we will not be able to talk about how to design complex shell scripts. That is one of the reasons why we want you to watch the other questions that we have coming up for you. But think about this. Your shell script has arrays. It has associative arrays. It has some ability to do numerical computations. Not that great, but it has some ability. It has the ability to write functions, and you can call functions. But there's no namespacing and no modules. There's only textual include via source. There are no user-defined structures or types. So datetime types, sorry, there's nothing there. The structured types are limited to arrays and associative arrays. And for arrays and associative arrays, the contents are strings. For associative arrays, it's a string-to-string mapping. Limited mathematical support, but excellent interactive use, excellent iteration environment, excellent process composition, and it is a highly compositional environment with no compositional assumptions. This is why our shell is not typed. Because if you had to type it, what type system do you use? Do you use the Python type system, the C++ type system, the Java type system, the Haskell type system, the Lisp type system? The shell makes no compositional assumption. The reason why PowerShell works well is because it has a common language runtime. Everything runs within the same runtime, so it has the ability to unify these types, so it can pass like objects around, and those objects have a common conceptual meaning bound together by that runtime. The shell does not have the ability to say, hey, everybody, let's all just use Python. The shell says, you bring me any process whatsoever, I'll find a way to patch them together. You might have to do some parsing work, you might have to do some translation work, but I'll allow you to connect these together. I don't care what language you use. The shell has had over 30 years of longevity as a consequence of this decision. Yes, it can be irritating when things go wrong, when things have spaces and they don't quite work, but the longevity of the shell is it makes no compositional assumptions. Because if Python falls out of favor today, if JSON falls out of favor in 3 years' time, your shell will still work without having to change the shell. Yes, you'll have to start deprecating your use of the JSON, you'll have to start moving over to new tools, but this is why the shell can persist. Because it is so simple, it has that very nice, very narrow, as a lot of the people who do shell development say, this narrow waist, which gives you this extreme compositional power. When you're writing shell scripts, think like in terms of things like xargs. Think about how you can lean into the use of the shell. Translating between things like argv and your standard out. Think about how, instead of writing a script that does something, write a script that emits the commands to then do something. Think in terms of your interactive use. The shell is intended to be used interactively first and foremost. People often say if it's more than 10 lines, write a Python script. I disagree completely. If you need a set, use Python, because there's no set at shell. If you need a dictionary, use Python. The associative array is not a dictionary. The keys can't be integers. If you need NumPy, use Python. If you need a user-defined data class, name tuple, regular old class T : use Python. If you just need to connect processes and you don't need rich data types, you don't need user-defined data types, you're okay with almost everything being string because you're mostly doing string manipulation, use the shell. It'll actually be an easier, better interactive experience than writing a Python script. And write small, simple things that compose well. And finally, remember the most important message. Ad hoc computing is great. Not everything has to be a system. Not everything has to be a big project. Not everything has to be done perfectly. Write small things that you can just use and move on with your life, that you can improve over time, that you can extend over time, that you can make more robust over time. But when you start thinking, okay, let me design the one tool to completely solve every single problem, you have gotten yourself distracted from your work. This is why the shell is so powerful, because it allows you to just do just enough to move on with your life and to get your work done. And all it asks of you is to bear with certain historical limitations, certain designs, which maybe are a little bit out of date these days, certain core concepts for how it works, and it will unlock enormous power for you. I write so many shell scripts to automate so many aspects of my life. You would be shocked at how much time I save from just little simple shell scripts to do simple things to make my life more robust. Sharing them can be a little bit tricky. At some point, I would love to share with all of you some of these little helpers, but the core idea is I don't need to share them. They're there for me to just quickly write get something solved, move on with my life. If I visit it enough times, maybe make it a little better, and to really integrate with my notion of ad hoc, user-driven, interactive, iterative computing.